Hey, welcome back to the podcast. Jeff Greenfield is here, and Jeff's company is called Provalytics. That's Provalytics.com. Jeff is an entrepreneur, he's an advisor, and he's a disruptor with 3 decades of strategy, growth, and marketing leadership. Now, he's building the next generation of AI-driven attribution as the co-founder and CEO of Provalytics. Now, they are a cookie-less attribution and measurement solution, which enables marketers to prove the impact from upper funnel channels like CTV and grow their budgets. Exciting stuff, useful stuff, needed stuff, especially with the cookie apocalypse coming that Jeff will tell us about, and he'll tell us about how we can make better use of our data and our traffic and our tracking and our people and our conversions and all that cool stuff. So Jeff, glad to meet you again and see you again.
Robert, it's great to be back here again. Attribution and measurement is something that I'm passionate about. It doesn't sound sexy, but it really is, because you're in the middle of things that are going on across marketers from small to very large, inside of some of the most detailed marketing decisions for some of the largest brands in the world. And that's an exciting place to be, especially in these changing times in the marketing world.
Yes, and it is exciting and it is changing, and it can be scary if we are left behind and if we're not informed. But if we are informed, then we can have a leg up on the competition. And so just to catch us up as far as the cookie apocalypse, I'm still not sure I 100% understand, but like the way I used to think of cookies was like you had one computer, right? You had like you went to your computer room or your office and you went and you connected to the internet that way. But so many times, I mean, I'm on like 4 devices at once, right? I go and I watch something on my smart TV. I go to my desktop, I go to my laptop, tablet, phone. And so that whole idea of the one cookie on the one machine, it seems really outdated. And so it makes sense that the Google gods, et cetera, are looking to phase that out. But that's just my own little understanding. But what is happening as far as cookies going away, or how we can make sense of this kind of story I just said, where like we have one person and 6 devices?
No, great point, Robert. And, for a long time, most people in the advertising world were terrified because Google kept saying, we're going to get rid of cookies. And this was going on for a number of years. And then what happened slowly but surely over time is Apple and iOS, they got rid of these tracking cookies. Those are gone. They're gone in Firefox. And when you start to think about the different types of new digital advertising technology like CTV and digital out of home and podcast advertising, where cookies don't even work, cookies are not really a reliable methodology anymore. It used to be that they were great when everything was just display ads and clicks. But now we have all these new methods of advertising, and who knows what's going to happen and what's going to be new in the next month or so. So the idea behind the cookie apocalypse now is that if all you're measuring with is cookies, it's really an unreliable way of looking at things. The other thing that's shifted that goes along with this is that cookies was all about the individual and the user and that device level. But because of privacy, we can't target anymore at that level. I can't really target very, very detailed, specific demographic data about all of your likes and all of the things you're into, like we used to be able to do on Meta and places like that. Now things are we've had to pan the camera back a bit because of privacy concerns. We used to be able to target Ford F-150 leaseholders whose lease was going to expire in 3 months. Can't do that anymore. It's just not the way things happen. And so if we could get down to that device level, it wouldn't really matter because we can't buy advertising at that level anymore. So we have to pan the camera back and look at the bigger picture, which is how things used to be before digital. And guess what? Brands were able to survive before digital. Huge brands that are still around today, like Pepsi and BMW, did killer jobs back in the day. So we have a lot to learn from the lessons of the past and apply them in today's digital world.
Okay, and so sometimes the old is new again. And so my understanding now, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is that now when you place the Meta ads, the Google ads, you have some amount of targeting, but then there's like it's all a lot of that fine grainness, they're still doing it, but it's hidden to you. And so when you're looking to target those, say, like Ford F-150 buyers, you can target a few things. But as far as like narrowing down to the least expire, like that's kind of out of your control now.
It's completely out of control. Those levels are not available anymore, especially inside of Meta where they used to be. In fact, a lot of advertisers are logging in right now and they're saying, oh my God, that campaign, it says I can't run it anymore, or it's going to expire when the budget that I set for it is there, because those criteria that I use for targeting are no longer there. I mean, you can definitely target by geo, you can definitely target by age, and certain types of demographics, but that's about it, which is kind of the same way it used to be with TV. You could kind of target, you would know the types of people who are watching Fantasy Island. You kind of have an idea of the demographics of people. If you're buying ads on, let's say, Netflix, people that are watching Love is Blind, they have all that demographic data, so you can buy according to that. But you're not going to be able to get much else these days. And that's just the way that what's happened is the advertising technology, folks, shifted too far. There was no rules around how we were utilizing all this data. So we went in for like grabbing everything that we could. And as a result, folks in the EU came in and with the GDPR and said, hey, you've gone too far. And now we have the CCPA in California and all these different privacy regulations. And so as a result, things are starting to shift back to a safer place. Most folks, we don't mind giving up our data, but, we really do want to have an idea of who's getting access to it and stuff like that. And I think that's probably a good idea.
Probably, if we were going to fall on one side or the other, well, it's like, well, do we let the advertisers run free and have super cheap ads, but privacy's out the window, versus, well, it's not ideal that you can't target these ads, but at least the privacy is protected. Like, I guess that's the lesser of the two evils. And so then what do we do in that case? If we're a business running paid ads, looking to get targeting that's more than just age and location, how do we crack this nut? How do we solve this problem?
Well, I think the first thing to understand, one other point to understand, is that all of the research has shown that hyper targeting, where we were trying to get down as deep as we could, because remember, the more we target, the more costly our ads are, because we have the cost of delivering the ads. But then when we layer in Ford F-150 leaseholders, somebody has to get paid to provide us that data. So that increased the cost of the ad. And so what we have found is that as you start to hyper target, your ads are actually reaching a fewer number of people. Although there are people in the group that you want to sell to, but it's fewer people, which means your cost to deliver each ad to every single person is more expensive. And what that means, your advertising has to work so much harder. And what we have found over time is that if you target higher up, you're reaching more people and the ads actually work better. That's what all of the research has shown over the last 20 to 30 years. And so the first thing is don't panic. That's number one. Trust in the fact that as you reach a larger audience, you may be hitting some people who aren't ready to make a buying decision at this exact moment. But what you're actually doing is you're giving advertising a chance to actually do its job, which is to build awareness. Because when we target so much lower, we're trying to hit people who are ready to buy right now. And what you want to do with your advertising dollars is you want to hit people that want to buy right now, but you also want to hit people that are looking and maybe won't buy now, but may buy in 6 months from now. And that's that concept of filling your funnel. So that's the first thing, is don't panic. Targeting up higher is not going to kill your advertising. It's actually going to help your advertising, whether you're a local business or a very, very large advertiser. The other thing you can do is you can improve the way that you measure. Most marketers and advertisers, they use GA4, which is Google Analytics, which is click-based advertising. And almost every marketer has got a Google sheet that has every single day of the year, how much they bought, how many clicks they got, how much they spend, how many sales or leads they had, and they know their click-through rate, they know their cost per sale and all of those things. And it violates all the rules of advertising. And what you want to do is remember why you're buying advertising. You are buying advertising because you are buying eyeballs. And the way you measure eyeballs is what we call impressions. And in order for a click to happen, someone has to be aware. And when you got all of that data for your Google sheet, you downloaded something from Google or from Meta or from wherever. And I guarantee you there was a column there for impressions. And what you want to do is you want to add those impressions to your Google sheet for the last year. And you want to start looking at, instead of just clicks and cost per click, you want to start looking at how many impressions did I have each day? And when did my clicks go up? And what's the relationship between more impressions and clicks and more impressions to sales or leads? And what you're going to find is, as you start to build awareness and impressions go up, it takes time for that awareness to be built, and then clicks will go up, and then you get more sales or more leads. And so the other thing you can do as an advertiser is change your perspective from clicks to impressions. You need to start thinking about what you're actually buying, and what you're buying are eyeballs. That's what you need to focus on. For much larger advertisers, the ones that are spending greater than 10 million or more per year, ones that are in a multitude of channels, you can do that on your own, but it gets very complicated once you get into 3 or 4 different channels. For that, you need a sophisticated model that can do that. And that's the type of work we do. But still, you need to change the mindset from clicks to impressions. You need to focus on eyeballs, because that is going to increase the number of people who are actually exposed to your ad. And that's what we call reach. And that's what advertising and marketing is all about. You want to reach more people.
And so, just to make sure that I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that clicks are important, but we need to also be tracking our impressions. And the reason is this sort of lag time, that it takes time to get this awareness. It takes time, if someone keeps looking at your ad, to kind of warm them up to then click. And like, you're making me think of, like, there's this one ad that's been following me around on Facebook for 6 months. This lady in like Switzerland, she's like, hey, I have this program on how to teach ChatGPT to sound like you. And I always look at that like, ooh, looks good. I just don't have time to go through some course right now, but like, I know I want it. And if she was maybe short-sighted, she might have stopped showing the ads, because like, I think I only clicked like once and I haven't bought, but I'm like, as soon as I have like a free weekend or a few days, I'll go and I'll click and I'll do it. And so she'll get me eventually. And so am I on the right track there, understanding why we need to watch the impressions, because there's someone like me who's being like warmed up from an ad?
Yeah, and this goes against everything that you see in Google Analytics. When you look in Google Analytics, it'll tell you 95% of your people converted within 1 day, and the other 5% converted in 48 hours. And that's just total BS, 100%. Now, according to Google, in their perspective, it is what they see, because they're so last click and click oriented. But most brands, you're talking the time to conversion could range from 6 days all the way up, for some brands, to 9 months. Some brands, it takes many months of sending messages or people being exposed until they're ready to actually make a purchase. And it's important for you to make sure that your funnel is always being filled, so that you have a continual run through of prospective customers coming through. So absolutely. And the way to do that, the DIY approach, is once you have a year's worth of impressions, you can start to see, and you'll say, well, I always buy the same stuff. Well, you will start to see changes in day-to-day impressions, where you'll see sometimes impressions are higher or lower, especially at the beginning or the end of the month. And then you'll start to notice, wow, that week when I had a lot more impressions, like a week and a half later, I got a lot more traffic to the site, although it all showed up. It just came as direct. And that's typically what happens. People get exposed to things, and then they just go and they just show up and they check it out. And we see this a lot with omni-channel retailers, folks that are selling, they have their own website, they're on Walmart, they're on Target, and they're on Amazon, and they're in the store. Things that you would think that would drive you to your regular website are actually driving people back to Amazon. So a great example of that is that ad that you were talking about. You keep seeing that ad because you clicked on it once. It's called behavioral retargeting. You click once and they just keep following you around. If you're an omni-channel retailer, somebody clicks once, they come to your website, they're going to see an ad. And you would think, well, when they see that ad again, they're going to come back to my website. But that ad reminds them, hey, I'm going to buy. And what we're finding is a percentage of people do come back to your website and buy. But guess what? A lot more will go to Amazon and buy it, because they're comfortable with Amazon. They feel safe with Amazon, especially if you sell your product there. And so that's one of the other crazy things, is that since there's a lot of different places to buy today, this advertising, even though you're telling people buy on my website, they may actually go and buy elsewhere, which is pretty wild.
It is. We always hear about showrooming, where you go into like a retail establishment and kind of, look at a book at a bookstore and say, okay, this looks good, but then I'll go and buy it on Amazon because it's what I'm used to, right? It's what my habit is. I know it'll get shipped to me. I don't have to carry it around. I don't have to like take out my credit card. But like, that's an interesting insight that there's even like a digital showrooming, right? That someone might see that there's something available for purchase on your website, but they're like, hey, I have to enter my PayPal or my credit card, and I'm not sure if I want to do those few extra clicks. And I'm also like, I guess I trust this site like 90%, but not 100%. Amazon, I know there's that kind of middleman layer, right? I know like my payment details aren't exactly being passed through. It just goes through Amazon. There's that element of like, might come in the box with this week's deliveries. I know I can refund it. Like, there's just slightly more trust with Amazon. So that's a great insight that someone might be like taking these many paths, including going to our website, but getting that e-commerce product over there on Amazon instead. And so like there's all these different like channels where someone might bounce around and find us in different places. And you said that Provalytics is this tool that kind of helps us make sense of this, right? And helps us figure out omni-channel. And so how does it do that? What's this tool all about?
Well, it's about looking at all your aggregated data. So essentially, we do the same thing of what's happening in the market. We've panned back the camera so that you can actually see the forest for the trees. So in the case of that example of an omni-channel retailer, for these larger retailers, they have a team that buys ads for the website. They have a team that buys for Walmart and buys for Amazon. And up top, you've got the person, the VP of marketing or the CMO, the one in charge of the actual brand. And these teams all have separate budgets, but nobody is talking to anyone else. So imagine you're the team on Amazon and you've got good ROI, but wouldn't it be interesting to know that the ads you're buying on Amazon, in this case, are actually people see the ad on Amazon, they click on it, and some people will say, I wonder if they have their own website. So sometimes your ads on Amazon are actually driving people back because of that omni-channel nature. So we're able to look at how all of these different channels interact with each other and the halo overlap that you get with each one of them, which actually provides a CMO a pure holistic picture of what's going on, because the larger the brand, you end up with more silos. And so what we use is that since we're living in this kind of new world where we're really back to the future of how things used to be before digital, we're using very sophisticated math and statistics with some AI and machine learning to be able to get to that big picture. But it's not just a big picture, because if I'm a digital marketer telling me that I have 3% more budget, I'm happy with that. But I live in a world of campaign, ad group, creative. Which combination should I spend that 3% on? Which is the best combination? Help me out there. I'll take the extra budget, but if you've got some more insight. And so our platform is able to go down to a very granular level, just like the multi-touch attribution tools of the past, which relied upon user level data. We're able to, with aggregated non-PII data, so it doesn't violate any privacy, and utilizing AI, we're actually able to get down to that very granular level. And the coolest thing as well is we don't have to put any tags on the site or collect any data. And for our clients who get started with us, we're not just looking forward. Right away for our clients, we're able to go back a full year. So imagine being able to go backwards and get insight for what you're going to do next month based upon what you did last year this time. I mean, that's really cool. So it gives marketers a completely different perspective. So we're using old tools of the past, but utilizing the super fast computers of today with machine learning and AI to be able to get to an answer that we weren't able to get to before, which is really awesome.
It's almost magic, the things that we're able to accomplish with all this data and all this computation. And I'm always trying to get my head wrapped around this idea of AI, especially LLMs, this idea of like predictive text, right? They piled in so much data and they've computed it so much that when you say, hey, write me this, it just the probability of what's there moving forward. And that's great for language, but also it's great for data. And I'm hearing more and more like, you appear on podcasts. I have lots of podcasters. This idea of just dumping your data into AI to get some insights. And it makes me think all these different things like, hey, I should dump my website traffic numbers. I should dump my CRM autoresponder click-through rates and just kind of get an opinion, right? See what kind of amazing things it says about, well, this, when you did more of this number increased, or this increased on its own just because it was this time of year. I mean, it's all just so amazing and mind-blowing, but also kind of overwhelming too, to think about just like, give the AI all this data and have it give you the big picture, but also give you some of these tiny insights about what's working or what's not working. And so to help me like be a little bit less overwhelmed, do you have a fun story about someone that had one of these kind of breakthroughs with Provalytics? Did they like use your tool, put it all together, put it in the AI? The AI said, do this, change this. They did, and it had some really cool result. Any fun kind of success story like that come to mind?
Absolutely. But I just want to add in one thing. I always caution people about dumping their data into AI. I would never recommend folks do that, especially if you've got private data about your company and about how much you're spending and about your sales numbers, especially for publicly traded companies. What we do with AI at Provalytics is that we trained an AI to be able to do stuff that humans would normally do. We run a very sophisticated process. It involves a series of steps that normally a human being, as each step is completed, would have to step in, do an analysis, and then decide what to do for the next step. So we trained an AI to actually do that for us, but it's not separate. We don't dump the data in there. But what I will tell you is with Provalytics, what it enables marketers to do, and I've got so many different stories that I can tell you, but typically I'll give you kind of a broad picture of what ends up happening. Most marketers today are data driven. They follow the numbers, and the numbers that they're following are telling them to spend more money in things like paid search because they're using Google Analytics. And so they're investing more and more dollars in paid search. And most marketers are experiencing these plateaus where they keep spending more money, but it doesn't seem like you're getting the same lift. And what that means is you've reached this point of marginal return. You can keep spending more money. Google and others will take your dollars, but you're not going to get any more of a lift. And so what ends up happening is that our data comes along and it shows a marketer, hey, you're way over invested in paid search by like several $100,000 a month. And it's a big disbelief moment for marketers. Marketers are like, are you kidding me? No, this is right. I'm following the tea leaves. This is telling me what to do. And then we'll point out something like how Meta is a huge overperformer. And they're like, no, it's never performed before properly. And so our platform is able to show them by taking dollars away. And it's a multi-step process. First off, take dollars away from stuff that's not working. And folks are terrified to do that. They're afraid that when we do that, that conversions are going to tank. And we take a small amount away. We don't even redeploy it. We just change one thing. That's the key to learning for folks, is just change one thing. So you cut spend and you sit back and you do nothing for about a month. And at the end of the month, you realize sales don't go down. Conversions didn't drop. So you cut it again in the second month. Still nothing changes. And then that starts to challenge that maybe the numbers we were following in the past aren't exactly correct. So now I've got this extra bucket of money. What am I going to do with it? We put it into whatever the platform tells us. In this example, it happens to be Meta. Meta tends to be more of a mid to upper funnel channel, depending upon the brand. And what does that do? All of a sudden, you're spending the same money and you have more conversions, more profit, more revenue. It's just as all we are is simply a really fine-tuned GPS that points you in the right direction. And right now, most folks are utilizing GA4, which points you towards the bottom of the funnel. Ours just happens to be pointed towards the top, which is going to provide you a better reach and more people coming through. And that's going to lead to more profit and more revenue time and time again.
Very cool. So we need to be changing our thinking, right? We need to be looking at the bigger picture, and instead of just being focused on the Google Analytics or just on this Facebook Meta ads, look at all the data from all the channels, because it might tell us something that's counterintuitive in the present, but makes sense looking back later on, that perhaps the budget or the ads are being kind of distributed incorrectly. Maybe we need to take some down here and put some up over there and just make a better use of our resources. And so this sounds like an amazing tool, kind of putting all our channels together and getting these kinds of insights. And in the last 2 minutes, I want to make sure that we kind of cover the basis with Provalytics. Is there anything that we're leaving out as far as like the features or the benefits of someone using this tool?
I think one of the biggest features that marketers really love about it is this concept of time to conversion, which we've talked about a lot. And what Provalytics does is that it starts at that granular level and actually is able to statistically determine how long each one of your campaign ad group creatives is actually taking to deliver either new customers, sales, profit, whatever the different KPIs are. So you're actually able to drill down and see how long things are taking to actually work. Where that is beneficial is if it's 2 weeks before the end of the quarter and all of a sudden you've got extra budget and you want to make an impact this quarter, you want to be spending dollars in campaigns that are actually delivering results in less than 2 weeks. Because if you spend dollars, let's say on TV, and TV is taking 45 days to have an impact, well, you spent the money, but you're not going to see it this quarter. You'll see it next quarter. So it really helps you on the ground in terms of making decisions. The other thing is the recommendations that it provides in terms of forecasting, in terms of looking ahead as to where you should spend your next dollar, aren't just at the channel level. They're at that campaign ad group creative level. And so the folks that are actually turning the dials, this will be actionable for them. And that's really important, is that this is not just a dashboard for you to pull reports on, a PowerPoint that you can use with your boss. This is actually going to help you make actionable decisions day in and day out. And that's hugely important. The other thing I'll add is that, and we kind of talked about this with all of the cookie changes, all of the changes in the industry, it's important for folks to understand that we're not done with the changes. And that's one thing about the advertising world. If it's 6 months without a change, you better get ready. Something big is going to change. A new channel is going to come about. Something's going to stop working. It's just the way it is. The only way to prepare for these changes is to have a solid foundation. We put together an attribution certification course that's available on our website. There's no cost. It's about an hour to an hour and a half to go through the course. You take a quiz afterwards, and you get a great certificate to put on LinkedIn. It handles the past, the present, and gives you a look into the future of what's coming in advertising. It's going to fix your broken foundation, and it will help you kind of see around corners for what's coming next.
That sounds like an amazing resource. A course we can take and a quiz at the end, and something we can place on LinkedIn so that way we can show off. And that's a great way to test our skills, but also for like the whole the lead qualification, right? It qualifies you to them and them to you. That's a really cool addition that you've added in there. And just in general marketing terms, what I'm getting from what you just said there is how important it is for us to know our actionable numbers. And it seems like, you have a conversation with some other business owner. I've been on coaching calls myself where like I went to someone for help and the guy's like, hey, what's this number? What's that number? And I'm just like, I'm sorry, I don't know the number. I need to go back and do that before I can get the help, including that. And we now that we can query the data, we can figure out these metrics, right? Like that really interesting one you mentioned there of like, what's the sales cycle time, right? What's the turnaround time? Which, man, I mean, like even just knowing to know that number is helpful, right? Because that way we know, like, if we turn the ads on, how long do we have to wait? If we turn the ads off, we adjusted something, well, now we can not work against ourselves, because we've all been there, right? Dealing with the sales cycle and the lag time. We started doing something and we said, oh, it didn't work. We stopped doing it, but then the lag caught up, and then the sales came in and we said, but what I stopped working, I made sales. Well, because there's the lag time. So it's just cool to know that we need to be checking on some of these metrics. And because we now have the data and we have the tools such as Provalytics, then we can make these kind of actionable decisions and work smarter instead of harder and kind of accomplish more. And so how does somebody know if their company is the right size, right fit, right industry to use Provalytics?
If your annual budget is $10 million or more per year, and you're in 3 to or more channels, then to get to the answers that you need to get to, you need a tool like Provalytics. If you're spending $10 million or more per year and you're all on Meta, you're not anywhere else, which I wouldn't suggest, but let's just say you are, then you're all set. You don't need us because all of the intelligence, all of the data is going to be right there in Meta. But the reality is consumers today are omni-channel. They may find out about you on Meta, but they're going to go search for you on Google, and they may go look when they walk in Walmart to see if you're there, if you're that type of product or service. So you need, once you get to be that level, you need to have this level of sophistication in order to figure out what's working and what's not working.
Well, all right then. So $10 million or more, and then 3 or more channels. And we've all done it, right? We've all bounced around to these different platforms, including over on Amazon, back to the website, to Meta, to some other social network. And so if you're running these ads, you're definitely leaving money on the table because you're not tracking the person and the journey they're taking on all these different platforms, including the awareness that happens from all those ad impressions. And so we need to look at things differently and have the more holistic view, which, as you said here, Jeff, it would require a person doing lots and lots of laborious work and making going through the decision tree. But now that we have these amazing AI tools that can almost work like magic, then we can make better use of our data. And we can do that by going to provalytics.com. That's provalytics.com. So that way you can overcome all these problems that are in front of us, right? Losing iOS, the walled gardens, making sense of CTV, etc. And so when someone goes to provalytics.com here, Jeff, where would you like them to go? Would you like them to watch a demo or join your list? What would the action be to do when they get to Provalytics?
Well, if they're interested in the platform, they can actually go and there's a live demo. We do those on a regular basis, or an on-demand demo for them to sit through. It's about 20 minutes or so, or they can download our attribution playbook that gives them an up-to-date in terms of how we see the marketplace, or they can, if they want to get certified, they can take that attribution certification course that we discussed.
All right, so either demo or playbook or certification, whatever makes sense to you, where you're at, where your company is, where you're stuck. We've all been through that journey of we think in a certain way and we act in a certain way, and that gets us to this bump in the road, that gets us to this milestone, and then you have to think differently, then you have to pivot. And so if you've been stuck with your ads, and especially with the omni-channel, and you need help with some AI driven attribution, sometimes you need to even get your head around it, right? Like, even I feel like I'm only finally getting it here, Jeff, at the end of our second podcast together, because you were on some other podcasts that I hosted, but now I'm like, okay, now I get what Provalytics is. And so if you need kind of that extra education in order to properly use the tool, introduce it to your company, sell it to the upper management, whatever, go to provalytics.com and watch the demo, check out the playbook, take that certification course. You use the tool, you'll love it, and you'll have a lot of extra fun and benefits and success with it. And so as we're wrapping up our conversation here, Jeff, it's time to put you on the spot just a slight bit. I like to ask my guest about a fun quote or lesson that has helped them either in their business journey or their personal transformation that they can then pass on to us. So does a fun, interesting, helpful quote or lesson come to mind for you that you can pass on to us?
I'd say my lessons are going to be very basic and boring, but I'll give it to you. The first is sleep. You gotta sleep at least 8 hours a night. Otherwise, things are not going to work. That's number one. Number two, you got to get up and move your body. You can go and exercise, but you got to get up and move, especially as more and more folks are working from home. I'm finding that a lot of people are sometimes sitting all day long. Sometimes folks aren't even leaving their house for a couple of days because they have everything they need. But you need to get up at least 3 times a day and leave your house, because that's what it would be like if you were working elsewhere. And fuel is the most important thing. You got to make sure that what you're putting into your body is healthy for you. because things aren't going to work right if you're not getting up and moving, if you're not getting the proper fuel and you're not getting the right sleep, you're not going to be any good for anyone at all, especially yourself or your company. So those are my basic, very boring tips that have made a huge difference in my life. But if you're the most important thing is for you to take care of the body that you have, because then you'll be able to help others in whatever you do every day.
100%. Self care is what it's all about. And it's an easy lesson to forget. And sometimes our minds play tricks on us, don't they? We're working for 12 hours and we say, I've done so much. And it's like, did you really get as much done as if maybe you worked for an hour and took a walk and then came back and did a little bit more? Like you might have done more in less time. And I can definitely relate to that. Like even like this office, sometimes I'm like, hey, I forgot to turn the lights on. I've been kind of sitting here in the dark. It's a important reminder to take care of yourself because there's only one of you, and you're only one body. You need to take care of it, and so hydrate, eat well, sleep well, move your body. It's human being 101, but so many of us still forget those foundational fundamentals. So as we're taking care of our body and thinking about our business and helping others and doing what we need to do, go to provalytics.com, which is an AI-driven attribution and planning tool for a privacy-first world. This way you can prove that your marketing works and think outside the box, have this excellent tool at your disposal. Provalytics, Jeff Greenfield, glad to be speaking with you.
Robert, it's a pleasure to be back here again. Thank you so much.